सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Back to the verse, mantra here. Yada atamaha, don't read it as yada tamaha. There is that S-shaped line there, you know, that S-shaped character which marks the elision of the akara. So it should be read yada atamaha, then tat nadiva naratri. Tat means here not that. Tat means tada. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, tat doesn't make any sense as that. Usually tatvamasi, that you know is talked about. Here tat means tada. So that yada tada construction, when, then. So when we are not talking of a particular time, okay, yada atamaha means when, like for example, that can mean what is that called? Noon, midday. Yada atamaha, when it is noon. Yada atamaha, when the sun is at its peak, you know, we can say something. Then the roads start to melt. We can say that, you know. It's a conditional clause. Like when okay, clap. Gave it a clap. Yeah, gave it a tap and a clap. So yada atamaha. So I want you to understand this funny construction. Otherwise, we can mistake it for something else. So, for example, there are certain conditional clauses using when and then. When the ajnanam drops, ajnanam means what? Ignorance. When the atma ajnanam, self-ignorance drops, then there is no shoka, no moha, you know, no moha, no delusion, no shoka. Shoka means what? Sorrow. Now, this is a conditional clause, meaning only under the circumstances of the ignorance dropping do we have the dropping of the shoka and the moha. So there is a concomitant relationship, a direct concomitant relationship in this clause, in this sentence, which is a conditional sentence. Depending upon the fulfilling of the first condition described by yada, when the ignorance drops, then the result of the dropping of the ignorance is the saying tata bye bye to delusion, you know, insecurity, fears, etc. Now, we can't take that here. Why? Because it doesn't make sense. Yada atamaha, when there is no ignorance, then, you know, the duality drops. You can't say that. Because the duality need not drop because it's really not there. How can something that first of all whose existence is questionable, how can it drop? You know, it drops only perhaps in one's cognition, correct? So this is not a conditional sentence. Do this, you know, then you will have, you know, whatever, the dropping of the duality. It is always it is always, that is, not delimited by anything. Not delimited by anything. It just simply is, and it is the nature of light because nothing hides from it. And what else can you compare consciousness to? Light and space, that's all. Space accommodates everything, light because it is all knowledge. So you can't really compare it to anything. Light is not correct to say. I said yesterday light and dark, but here, light in the form of nothing hides from it. That sentience which is all pervasive. So we cannot say when that sentience is all knowledge and all pervasive, then there is no night and day. That makes no sense. Yeah. So the yada here is not a conditional when-then construction. And there is no concomitant relationship between the two. We have to understand this very carefully, because otherwise it's very, it's confusing. It can be confusing. So therefore, a better way to look at the first line is to say, is to translate yada as because. Yasmat, because of the fact that it, the Atma Tattva, the Atma, the Brahman is what? Atamaha, because it is totally and utterly devoid of even a lesha, a shadow of ignorance. Tatu means here because, and that's why Nadiva Naratrihi. So all divisions may have no meaning, because the divisions come out of that undivided one, as though. Remember yesterday we brought in the word as though in a big way, so we have to keep using it. So the divisions bring in the as though, but because it is utterly devoid of, devoid of any any residue of ignorance, and it is all sentience, all knowledge, all all light. There is no room, just like when the sun is at its peak, there is no room for darkness. So like that, so instead of saying when the sun is at the peak, there are two ways to describe this in using the example. When the sun is at its peak, then we can say there is no darkness. There is no room for darkness, a conditional clause. Or we can say because the sun is shining, there is no room for darkness. In the second way, we have to take the first line. In the second sense, because the Atma Tattva is shining, is blessed by knowledge, is shining because it is self-evident without needing to be an object. It's the I is the only thing that is self-evident and does not need to be what? Objectified, pointed out. The only thing whose existence shines, that's why the word shine is used, whose existence shines because it doesn't need to be pointed out. So, therefore what? Because of that, the duality of night and day has no meaning. So it's not a conditional knowledge. It's not a knowledge that stops existing just because, why? The person went to sleep. Person goes to sleep, but Atma is aluptadrik. Aluptadrik means one who sees all the time. Alupta means without absence. Drik, seer. Even if you are having a staring down contest with somebody, you have to blink, correct? Atma doesn't blink. It doesn't have eyelids. It just is. It's the seer, it's the ultimate seer. It's even the witness of sleep. So, because when you get up, you say, I slept very, very well. I don't know anything else. So, that's why there is no, the duality is swallowed up in this, in the wake of this identification with this knowledge that I am this Atma. In the wake of this knowledge, all duality is swallowed up. There is nothing, there's nothing more that is wanting even here, because it is total, it is complete, it doesn't need anybody else or any other conscious entity to what? To advertise it, to objectify it. That's why the second line says, na sat, na cha asat. And again, it transcends the duality. First, it transcends the duality of time, correct? What kind of time? Past, present, future, night, day. So it transcends the duality of time. And in the next line, it transcends this duality of existent and non-existent. Because really speaking, there is no such thing called non-existent. Yeah, think about it. Whatever you say exists. You have a favorite cup, a teacup. Bone china, it's called. Why is it called bone china? Because both the bones and the teacup is susceptible to osteoporosis. Both of them just crumble. Bones crumble and the jiva mumbles as the bones crumble, and what? The teacup also crumbles. That's why it's called thin bone china. And so this bone china cup, nicely painted with gold and everything. Very expensive. People have a fancy for that with what is that called? Saucer. This is not so much in America, because Americans are practical. They like this big mug, just and this mug is very offensive to all the dainty tea drinking cultures, whether it's England or Japan or China, that have mastered the art of tea, completely. And so there you have this small little cup with all dainty, and then the cup, you hold a saucer underneath, and the saucer is matching flowers or whatever there are. The saucer is matching with the same gilded pattern, and then it becomes a collectible item, So that kind of a what is that? Bone china cup, correct? So like this, we can have the, you can say, bone china cup exists. And even if you say exists, oops, what is oops? Gone. Gone. Oh, bone china cup no longer exists, no longer is. Now I'm just left with a saucer to use as a bhiksha patra, as a begging bowl. That's all. Because it was an antique, and then, maybe some royalty had drunk from it, like that queen, what was her name? The one who said, let them eat cake, like that queen had drunk from it. And, so many things are there. So like this, it could be a very valuable antique, but it is no longer there, finished. So then, the existent cup becomes non-existent. This is what surrounded by finite. Sounds like a paradox. How can you be infinitely surrounded by the finite? Yes. And you're infinitely, I'm also infinitely preoccupied with the finite. Yes. So the finite takes over the infinite, so to speak. Yes. This infinite Atma is, identified with the body, mind, sense complex. Atma buddhya parichinna, because it is conditioned by the body, mind, sense complex. And aham, aham buddhi, the I notion residing in the body, mind, sense complex, identified with the body, mind, sense complex, thinks of itself as finite, thinks of everything as finite. But since it has that taste for the infinite, which it really is, it's infinitely preoccupied with the infinite, but it chooses the infinite repeatedly in finite things and entities. Will you be my forever? That's the thing. And everybody says yes. All, all 7 marriages. Yes, yes, I do, I do, I do. Will you? Yes, I do. And then what? No, I don't. Finite. And that, the preoccupation with the infinite doesn't go, because that is the only search of this jiva. And unfortunately, that search is being conducted in a wrong way, in the wrong place, in a very graceless way. And that's why one is infinitely surrounded by the finite, one is infinitely preoccupied by the finite, one is infinitely striving to make the finite infinite. Even word-wise, you have finite. All you have to do is add one in the front. The prefix in, you have to add, and then it negates the finite. So it can't be that hard in the empirical world to make the finite infinite. Maybe I just have to add in. When you add in, what happens? You are in. In what? Samsara. That's what you are in. That's what happens. How long am I in samsara? Infinitely. You are in samsara. That's why you are called samsarin. So therefore what? So therefore here, the second line is very important, because sat, and asat, this existent and non-existent, because when that first finite thing breaks, the cup broke, then I'm already contemplating on how to fill my collection with another cup. This is what happens. I once went with Puja Swamiji somewhere to somebody's house for bhiksha, and they had all these collectible, these things that they keep in the showcase, crystal and I don't know what not, some artifacts, very expensive. And they showed Swamiji, please bless, these, because they are already collectible items. And Swamiji didn't know what to do. He was intrigued. And then he said, how do you know they are collectibles? And the man explained, I got each of these for $2,000. $2,000 just to keep in the showcase? Yeah. Okay. And then now they have become, each one has become $5,000. And if I keep it for a few more years, each one will become $10,000, Swamiji. In 2 years, it has become $5,000. And so Swamiji just wanted to see what the big deal was, and he reached out his hand to catch one of the figurines, and I could see the distress. I mean, this is Puja Swamiji, and I could see the kind of a little doubt in the couple, like, should we give it to him? What if he breaks it? Then we'll have the dubious distinction of a collectible artifact being broken by a Mahatma. It's a very dubious distinction. How to, so they finally gave it, and and Swamiji, even though he was not looking at their faces, he knew exactly what was going on in their minds, and he said, don't worry, to break it amidst people. And then the rest of us who had gathered, we all just laughed heartily, because it was like, people keep asking what does Vedanta in action look like. This is what to a figurine, a heart is given away to all kinds of, wrong pursuits at the wrong, levels, at all various kinds of things. and then one is sort of steeped infinitely in the finite. And therefore, is very, very important. Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi Nedam Yadidam Upasate. Upasate means not, that which people worship. Worship here is not something just at your altar. Worship means objects of desire with which one is preoccupied. But what's wrong with surrounding myself with objects of desire? Nothing wrong. Some people need that, and that's okay. But make room for Vedanta. Make room for Vedanta. It's like the baby as it's growing up. It's gone from the thumb sucking stage to the security blanket stage, and sometimes the two go together. Catch the blanket and suck the thumb. Chup chup chup. Keep sucking the thumb. And then after that, what? The baby, now a small toddler, graduates to listening to stories, sitting in the lap and listening to stories. That is a graduation, because it's not completely, obsessed with the thumb sucking and the blankie or the teddy bear. It is ready to sit and dialogue and ask questions about the stories. So you can imagine it sitting on the father's lap, the grandmother's lap, mother's lap, somewhere, and or the father or the mother are telling stories of Ramayana, and it is listening. Oh, that happened. What happens is that, children are quiet. What happens? They sit in the lap, all right, but along with the and the teddy bear and the blankie. So that's what it is like to be surrounded by objects and also listen to Vedanta. Nothing wrong at all. When the Vedanta story time, becomes very fascinating and preoccupies the inner child, then the hold over the blankie loosens. The pacifier just effortlessly falls out of the mouth. That's how it is. So the thumb is forgotten to suck. The child, the thumb starts to feel bad. Nobody is paying attention to me. So it just drops. Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Bhagavad Gita is very practical. This is what Bhagavad Gita tells, is that, niraharasya dehinah. First thing is you have a little fast. What kind of fast? Cyber fast, object fast, and a little fast. Just say for 2 hours I'm not going to indulge all the every raga dvesha that comes. So what am I going to do? I'm only going to indulge every other raga and dvesha, not every one, or every third one, or every fourth one. Like that you can just take a little raga dvesha fast, cyber fast, internet shopping fast. All these things you can just try for an hour a day. Gossiping fast, criticizing and being critical and judgmental fast. So like this you can just try, a little bit every day. And when just like in the food fast, when you on Ekadashi day or some Amavasya, some people fast. And then, when you're not fasting, you don't think about food at all. But when that fasting happens, then what happens? You feel more hungry because the attention is focused right there. Correct? Yeah. So it's just it's a little fast. You notice it, and that you feel hungry, and all kinds of food fancies for the one who is doing upavasa, fasting. All kinds of food fancies come. Like on Shivaratri day, you feel like eating a big pizza all by yourself. Big one, mine. You can't have it. That kind of a feeling comes. But then, what Bhagavad Gita says, for the niraharasya dehinaha, for the person who is putting the raga dveshas on a little fast, because they are, they are committed to Vedanta, then what happens? Rasavarjam rasaha api. So rasavarjam, so even though devoid of that enjoyment, then that enjoyment is still there in the mind. The mind is preoccupied with that enjoyment. But then what? Nivartate, that too drops. It drops. When does it drop? Param drishtva. So when the person is focused on the knowledge, the longing also drops along with the objects. You don't have to make any effort. So here, what we are talking about is the nature of objects is to break. The nature of objects is to destruct. The nature of objects is to die. Yeah. And so when the cup breaks, which cup? The cup of this fellow's happiness. It was overflowing and then it broke. Along with that, the happiness spilled in all directions and then turned into tears. This is the problem. Because one falls in love with only that with which one can identify. One is always ready to fall in love with which one can, not identify, objectify. So what am I trying to say? You're falling in love with Namarupa. You can't fall in love with Atma Tattva. Why? Kartru Karma Virodhat. Because there is a contradiction, Virodha, between Kartru and Karma. Between the Karta, the actor, and the acted upon. So subject-object contradiction is there. So I am in love. You have to say something. You have to talk, you to talk about an object. In love with a bone china cup, with a painting, with a person, with so many things you can put. I love this thing. I am in love with this. I'm obsessed by this. I am fond of this. So whatever that object. But if you say I am in love with myself, how is that even going to be expressed? It cannot. I want to shake myself by the hand. I want to give myself a hug. It makes no sense. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want myself a present. How are you going to do that? And it has to be a surprise. How is that possible? And I'll gift wrap the present. The right hand will give the present to the left hand. It becomes totally meaningless. So therefore, one is, that Atma, which is all Ananda, which is all knowledge, all Ananda, is of the nature of love itself, And that love is keeping on pouring out, trying to find an other, to latch on and to magnify itself. That's all it is. That's all it is. That's why the love of the Jagat. The love of the Jagat is because that outpouring of the love of one's own nature wants to find places and places and areas to look at itself. It's all it's kind of a narcissism, really, in a good way. So the thing is this, that when you call something non-existent, you're only calling the Nama Rupa non-existent, because that existent, that which powered the Nama Rupa and gave birth to the Nama Rupa, sustained the Nama Rupa, and then what? And is sustaining the other forms of the Nama Rupa, here the broken cup, then what happens? So really that existence is you. That is you. It's not the Nama Rupa. It's you. So the existence here does not belong to the cup. What belongs to the cup? Namarupa belongs to the cup, with which one has fallen in love. So one falls in love with Namarupa, and the Namarupas are finite, infinitely finite, and therefore one is constantly disappointed. This is the point one. Point two is that when you talk about existence and non-existence, it's all about the relative appearance and disappearance of the Namarupas. That's what it is. Name and form, name and form, name and form, word and meaning, word and meaning, word and meaning. That's all it is. The whole Jagat is full of that. Nothing other than that. Word and meaning, name and form. And so here, the Namarupa I am preoccupied with, the Namarupa falls apart or becomes another Namarupa. Like cup is, and then now broken cup is, shattered cup is, molecule is, particle is, you know. So now the cup has changed into shattered cup, broken cup, cup molecule, china, bone china molecules, porcelain, particles. That's what it has changed to. So when the Namarupa undergoes a change, there is no change in the existence. That same existence, that same Sat, right, was powering the Namarupa of the cup, and that existence merely continued in the form of a broken cup, and then it continued in the form of a shattered cup, and then it continued in the form of a useless cup, which is just a bunch of molecules which has to be swept up and recycled, disposed of. This is what it is. So the existence continues, and it is prasrita. That is what the last line says, prasrita. It's ancient. Ancient existence means here timeless. You can't put a date on it. BC. Which BC did this existence start? It did not start. That's why it is ancient. Prasrita, spread. Purani. Purani means what? Timelessly ancient. Prasrita Purani. What is Prasrita? Prajna. This existence, which is all knowledge, is Prasrita, all pervasive of this whole Jagat, including this body-mind complex. And so what? So this existence alone is, and that is you. That is you. That is not someone else outside of you. And so what you're searching for is a siddha vastu. It is already accomplished, and that's why one needs the knowledge, because the search has to drop. The search will only drop when you are convinced that this is what I am interested in. That's when it will drop, not otherwise. And so therefore what? So therefore this has to be understood clearly. The second line, Sat na Sat na Asat. You cannot say it is non-existent. And then you cannot say what? It is existent as an object. Because when you say cup is, then I am depending upon the Nama Rupa to notice the existence. So all things, number 3 of our discussion, all things of Nama Rupa need to be objectified. The only thing that doesn't need to be objectified is that which indwells the Nama Rupa, that which as though blesses the Nama Rupa to come alive in shape and form without undergoing any change, though occupies the Nama Rupa top and bottom completely. Like the clay pervades the pot completely, there is no part of the pot not pervaded by clay. Similarly, there is no part of the Nama Rupa not pervaded by Sat. And that Sat is you. Tat Sat Tvamasi Shvetaketo Tatvamasi. It is you. That's all it is. So then where is the question of Asat? There is no Asat. There is no Asat, because if I were to come and say, I am the witness of Asat. What's wrong with this scenario? The witness need and is to cognize and is not. How is not cognized? It has to be cognized by is. So what is more powerful? Is or is not? Is not is objectified by is. Is never objectified, because is doesn't need to be objectified. Is self-evident. I am is self-evident. I am is self-evident, and that isness is already evident. And so the only thing that needs to be cognized is the Nama Rupa. So the Nama Rupa cannot cognize itself, and the I cannot be cognized as the Nama Rupa, as an object. Nama Rupa cannot, is not self-referential, is not self-evident, and the I is not evident to others than itself. It's not evident to any other entity other than itself. It need not be evident to anyone else because it is self-evident. So the Nama Rupa not self-evident, I self-evident. So this is the Sat we are talking about. That Sat which is which is in the form of Namarupas, which haven't, without undergoing any change, it has proliferated, populated all the Namarupas anywhere, which are there, which are there, which are yet to come. That same Sat will permeate and pervade the Namarupas without undergoing any change, just like every night you pervade your dream world completely without undergoing any change. No change at all. How? Because I told you yesterday that same Atma is just playing in the dream world. Krida, it's all a play. Pun intended. So it's all a play. And so, so therefore what? So therefore, you cannot say Atma is existent as an object. It's not the same kind of existence that the Atma and Mithya objects, Namarupa objects, occupy. It's not the same one. There is a difference, and that is what is, and that difference is one needs to be cognized, recognized, and the other one recognizes itself. That's the only difference. Okay? And so na sat, na asat. So that's why it transcends the duality of existent and non-existent, and that duality is an artifact. Yeah, it's kritrimam. It's a false duality based on wrong understanding. Existent, non-existent is all based on only Namarupas, only the understanding of Namarupa. Where did this go? It was here yesterday, gone tomorrow, it's not here, this was there, this body was there, this body has gone, that body was there, that body has gone, everything like this. So, therefore, therefore, the Atma is unique because it transcends this, is, not is, this relative understanding of is and not is completely. And then so, lest we think that it is absolute non-existence, which doesn't exist, which cannot exist, because you cannot negate the witness, you cannot negate the knower. Here, the cognizer of non-existence, you cannot negate. So, that is an existent entity. So, therefore, what? So, what is that existence? Shivaha Kevalaha. Kevalaha Shivaha. Two meanings. Kevalaha only. Only auspiciousness. Meaning there is nothing that is in opposite of that. And number two, second meaning. Kevalaha without a second. So all auspiciousness. I mean, what a deep teaching, because the hallmark of samsara is feeling I am unlucky, I am inauspicious, only bad things happen to me. This is what people think. What did I do wrong? Why do I deserve this? How come the other person is not having this? All these regrets, the guilt, the hurt, all this, makes for the rampant feeling, a feeling that has an abiding presence in the human heart. I am not good enough. I am unlucky. Bad things keep happening to me. But here, the Atma is revealed as the source of all auspiciousness. Completely, it is nothing but other than good luck. Good luck, Atma. There was one president somewhere, good luck, Jonathan. So here, good luck, Atma. All auspicious. Shivaha Kevalaha, without a second. It is all auspiciousness, and that has to be recognized. Next line. Tad aksharam tat savitur varenyam. Varenyam, to be, two meanings. To be chosen. Fit to be chosen. Varenyam, to be chosen. Varana yogyam varenyam. So that which is fit to be chosen. Tat aksharam savituhu. Savituhu is there or not? Tad aksharam varenyam. Yeah, savituhu. Tat aksharam savituhu varenyam. So, instead of choosing the Namarupas constantly and then getting disappointed when they combust, what do? Choose something else. Here the idea is choose that which is infinite, which is imperishable. Tat aksharam varenyam. Choose the one that is beyond time, which we have talked about. Choose the one that is beyond space. Choose the one that is beyond all the nama rupas, that which powers the nama rupas without becoming one of them. Choose that one. In other words, choose the knowledge of yourself. Tad aksharam varenyam. Choose the imperishable one. What? Savituhu. Savituhu means brilliant. Yeah. All light, all knowledge, self-evident. So choose that Bhagavan here, Ishvara, choose that Ishvara, and first meaning, choose that Tattva which is self-shining, which is brilliant, which is, Tad Aksharam, which is imperishable. Choose that truth. That Atma Tattva is yourself. Choose that. Shake away the focus from, the finite, from, what's that? Preoccupation with the finite. And, go towards, move towards cognizing the infinite. Varenyam, to be chosen. And the second meaning for the word Varenyam is worthy of worship. So here we are not just talking about, Atma, we are talking of Atma as Ishvara, Brahman as Ishvara. And so Savituhu in the first instance was brilliant. Here Savituhu means, all knowledge, worshipful. Varenyam here means worshipful in the second line. Tat Savituhu Varenyam, that which is as brilliant as the sun, has to be worshipped. That worshipful one has to be chosen. That Bhagavan has to be brought into the situation, because how are you going to know that, this Nama Rupa is really you? How are you going to know that the nature of that existence, which is constantly belying you and is so elusive? How are you going to know that which you cannot objectify? Therefore, a lot of grace is needed. Oodles of grace, noodles of grace, Bhagavan's grace, Shastra's grace, Guru's grace, your own grace, 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 all the time. Without grace, there is only grace in the objects of the Jagat. In the pastures of samsara, you keep grazing. That's all it is, aimlessly. Little nibble here, little bite there, little this, little that. Oh no, I wanted to eat something, but I ate a thorn. Oh no, what to do? Let me eat something else. So like this, one is just going after the sense objects, not understanding that one is not in love with the objects, but one is completely in love with the subject that one doesn't know. So please choose the right thing. Choose the Atma Tattva, first meaning, that is all knowledge, all brilliance, and is imperishable. One meaning. So, another meaning, choose Ishvara, who is imperishable, whose help through prayer, etc., you can take to drop the ragadveshas, to drop all the things, and to move forward in this, in this pursuit. Tat Savitur Varenyam, Prajna cha Tasmat, Tasmat here means two readings, because one meaning is because, second meaning is from that Bhagavan, Prajna Prasrita Purani. Yeah, Savituhu, that which is Bhagavan. Savituhu is the name for that brilliant Bhagavan, Varenyam. So what happens, then from that Bhagavan has Prasrita, has been spread out. What has spread out? Purani, ancient, Prajna, wisdom. So you don't think of it as ancient wisdom, think of it as timeless wisdom has proceeded from whom? Timeless wisdom has proceeded, has one who pervades the whole universe in the form of that timeless wisdom. I seek to know him as the truth of myself. That's what it is. So, prajna cha tasmat, cha here is and furthermore, cha means furthermore. Furthermore what? Prajna, whose knowledge in the form of sentience is available everywhere. Whose knowledge in the form of sentience, who all knowledge is, including knowledge of Namarupas, is available everywhere at all times. Prajnacha tasmat prasrita purani. So the knowledge is the Jagat. The Jagat is nothing but the infallible knowledge of Ishvara. But you cannot say, the other way around. Jagat is nothing but Ishvara, but you cannot say Ishvara is Namarupa, Ishvara is Samsara, Ishvara is Jagat. It's a one way only. Yeah. So, the, Prasrita Purani. Purani means beyond time and space, uncreated. Purani, Prajna, Prasrita Tasmat. So, Tasmat here means from whom, or you can take Tasmat, Tasmat Tadvarenyam, because the Prajna is spread out, therefore you have to, find the adorable one, the imperishable one, and choose to worship that Bhagavan to overcome all the obstacles to gaining this knowledge or to gaining whatever one wants. Let's see here. Yeah. So, Prajna cha tasmat prasrita purani. We have covered it, I think. Yeah, we've covered the whole thing. And so next time I'll send the schedule for April. Next time we will start with chapter 5, verse 1. Okay? Dve akshare brahmapare tvanante. Okay, so if I ask you next time, where are we? What will you say? Chapter 5, verse 1. Okay? Yeah. So that's what you can do. And then we'll start with this again soon after my travels. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you, Solvi. Om. Oh, today was not recorded. Hopefully, Andrew has recorded. I forgot. Oh, thank you. Om.